So we're here at the media center at COP30 here in Belém. And I have a very interesting guest to interview, and we will talk about that democracy is currently under threat. And with me here, I have the honor to have Esmeralda of Belgium with me. Welcome to our interview.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be here.
And it's so great to see you again. First time we met were actually just a month ago at the Vatican's Climate Summit. It was quite interesting experience with Arnold Schwarzenegger and the Pope, and it were so many great climate advocate people there. And your story, how you became this climate activist as a princess, were very interesting. So for the viewers that were not there, can you tell them about how did you end up here in Belém for the climate meeting?
So I have been to so many COPs over the last 10 years. Yes, since Paris Agreement. So that's not something strange for me to be here. But because it's in the middle of the Amazon, I mean, it's a very symbolic COP. And I wanted to be here specifically.
And how did you become involved in the climate and environment issue from the beginning?
Well, it's a bit of a personal story because my father was very involved in the protection of the environment way before the time it became fashionable. I'm talking about the 1930s. And so when I was a child in the 60s, 70s, I heard all his stories. I got really love for nature and also for indigenous cultures and wisdom and rights. So this is something that started very early. But then came the climate crisis. My father was not there anymore. He passed away in the 80s. But then it became something of an existential crisis and multiple crises. And I thought, okay, I'm a journalist, but I need to do more. I have to become an activist.
And what year was this?
This was, I would say, the beginning of the 90s.
That's quite early. Was it kind of a trigger point, or was it just slowly growing into your conscience?
Slowly growing, and especially meeting all the communities that are the most affected. So indigenous communities, local communities, women, because we know that it's not a crisis which is gender neutral. Women are really very much affected. And so I became really involved in all those different crises.
And you have been doing this for quite a while now. Have you seen something different happening in this space? Because now it's become so polarized and political to be advocating for climate. When did you first observe this kind of change?
Actually, I'm really worried because, you know, I was with Extinction Rebellion. I was also arrested, but that was in 2019. And that was more or less okay. And obviously, I didn't risk so much. I went to jail, but for a few hours. But now I have many colleagues who are in jail in the UK for 4-5 years. I mean, climate activism is now treated like terrorism. And this is in our countries, but you can imagine in other countries where it's more difficult, when there's less democracy, it's even worse. For example, Ecuador, for the moment, they are really clamping down on NGOs, and especially indigenous NGOs. So we have to mobilize and say, I mean, the terrorists are not the activists. The terrorists are the ones who are destroying our planet.
But wait a minute now. You're a member of the royal family in Belgium, and you have been arrested. How did that happen? Because that is not happening to everyone. What did you do?
Well, I was in a protest, which was a peaceful protest. We were sitting on the street. We were hundreds of us. And of course, there were hundreds who were arrested. I was among them.
And how did the police react when they understood who you were?
Well, they didn't know. So when they said they had to tell my embassy because I was not a UK citizen, I said, oh no, do you have to? And they said, they never react. Don't worry, never. I said, maybe. So they put me in jail, and like 2 hours later, the guy came, and very British. He said to me, "You were right. They called." But as I tell you, it was not the climate that we have now, which is really erosion of human rights and democracy.
So if you have been in that protest today, 5 years later in 2025, what do you think would have happened to you today?
Well, I'm privileged. There is no other word for that. And I would have probably another treatment. But I'm thinking about all the ones that have not that treatments, that lose their job, that stay in jail, and that's not acceptable.
What do we need to do to get the leaders to understand that you're not a terrorist, you're actually trying to save the planet, and everyone else that is working here try to do the same? What do we need to do to change this very negative development around the climate protest topic?
I think the citizens have really to unite, and many different sectors like the faith, like obviously the trade unions, like we have to mobilize all sectors of the civil society, because unfortunately some leaders are going that way to restrain our rights. So we have to make a lot of noise, we have to react.
Yeah, there's some new studies saying that 89% of population actually support climate action, but they believe they are alone. So they are not doing so much because they think they are alone in this. When they look at the leaders and how policymakers are making decisions in the other direction, it's easy to understand that it sometimes can feel very lonely. What do you think we that are active in the climate space can do to get them more active? What is needed from people like you and me?
I think everyone can do something, because yes, you're right, some people feel overwhelmed and say I have no power. First of all, it's not true. We have the power, the people have the power to elect the leaders, to talk to their banks and say I don't want to support dark activities like fossil fuels or I don't know, armament and all that. We can talk to our friends, to our family, we can have a big movement, but we have to do it. And everyone can do a small thing. Some can do big things, but everyone can do something.
I agree. I'm also wondering that you're quite unique member of a royal family, very outspoken and not very fearless, and I love that. What I see, a lot of people are looking up to kings and queens and princes around a lot of topics. Do you see that you can influence your cousins, so to say? For Sweden, it's a little bit weird. We didn't have a minister representing us. We did actually have the king. Perhaps you even met him. How do you see we can mobilize the royals around the world for this topic? We all know that the king of United Kingdom were very outspoken before he became a king. Now is not as much outspoken. He tried to balance it, but this is not really the time to balance things. Or what do you say?
No, but it's very difficult for the King of England, obviously, because it's the government which decides all that matter. But he has been a great voice all over his life, and the Prince of Wales is also now an active, I wouldn't say activist, but environmentalist, which is very important.
And do you see that more can be mobilized to be more outspoken, maybe that are not kings or queens, but are near those in royal?
I think we have to move to the other level. We need to be radical, because we need a radical change of mind, a radical change of system, and not something just cosmetic, which will allow the system to stay the same. If we want to talk about the fossil fuels, it should be the COP that decides the just transition. But we have been waiting all those years to have even the mention. So now President Lula said it's the COP of the truth. So I hope that will be the outcome.
The truth will be the outcome, but we will see what they decide. That's another thing. And if you are dreaming, what will be the dream COP realistically that can be achieved here in the negotiations?
I think the most obvious is the just transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy, because we are on that path. All the businesses know that we are on that path, but now we need the policymaker to have the courage to decide that. That's one thing. The other one, of course, is nature. Nature is completely destroyed. We have to make those two fights together much stronger. And I would say, obviously, the money, because it's always the problem of the money. So much has been promised for the countries which are at the forefront of the climate. Remember, we just had a terrible hurricane in Jamaica. The country is absolutely destroyed. That just before the COP, it shows us the way we have to do and help those countries.
And what do you think the viewers of this interview can do to advocate for climate, but also defend the right to advocate for climate? What is your pledge to them?
Yes, please, to make alliances, to meet all sorts of different sectors, to talk about it, and also to defend the defenders, because those are the ones that are killed every week defending the environment, indigenous and from local communities, for us, for our future.
Thank you so much for joining, and you are a true inspiration, and it's an honor to have you as a guest. Thank you.
Thank you very much.